Welcome to Have More Babies. Today we're diving into something really important and honestly quite sensitive. It's a topic that causes a lot of anxiety for parents, sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDs. You might know it as crib death. It often feels quite mysterious. So our goal here is to unpack some of that mystery. We'll be drawing on reliable information, like from Omega Pediatrics, to help you feel more informed, maybe a bit more empowered. So, okay, let's start right there. What exactly is crib death? Why is it such a quiet worry for so many families?
Yeah, it's a heavy topic, absolutely. And it's totally normal if you're listening with some apprehension or just plain curiosity. So, SIDs, sudden infant death syndrome, is basically the unexpected death of a baby under 1 year old, a baby that seemed perfectly healthy. And it usually happens during sleep. The key word there is unexplained. After looking into everything, doctors can't point to one single clear reason. It's not suffocation, it's not neglect, it's not a reaction to a vaccine. That's what makes it so tough. But, and this is important, unexplained doesn't mean there's nothing we can do. Understanding the risks we do know about and the steps we can take to prevent them, that's where knowledge becomes, well, really powerful.
That's a really crucial point, that it's not just this complete unknown we can't influence. So, okay, if there isn't one single cause, what do we know? What are the patterns or factors that seem to increase the risk?
Right. Even without that one smoking gun, research has identified some really significant risk factors. One of the biggest is age. SIDs is most common when babies are between 2 and 4 months old.
2 to 4 months. Okay. Why that specific window?
Well, it seems to be a really critical time for brain development, specifically the parts of the brain controlling breathing and waking up from sleep are still maturing. So if a baby maybe has a slight underlying issue there, and then they encounter some kind of stressor, like difficulty breathing, during this vulnerable period, their body might not respond properly. They might not wake up or shift position like they should.
Ah, okay. So it's like a developmental window of vulnerability. That makes sense. What about things outside the baby? Like I know sleep position is talked about constantly.
Absolutely. Sleep position is probably one of the most critical risk factors we can actually control. Babies sleeping on their stomachs are at a much, much higher risk than babies sleeping on their backs.
Why is that? What's happening when they're on their stomach?
There are a few things. One big concern is rebreathing. If a baby's face down, especially on soft bedding, they can end up breathing in the air they just exhaled. That means they get less oxygen and more carbon dioxide, which is dangerous. Also, it can be harder for them to wake themselves up if they're having trouble breathing when they're on their tummy. That arousal response we mentioned, it might be dampened. And stomach sleeping can sometimes lead to overheating, which is another risk factor we know about.
Wow. Okay, so putting them on their back is huge. That whole back to sleep campaign really came from this evidence, didn't it?
Exactly. And it led to a dramatic drop in SIDs rates. It shows how a simple change can have a massive impact.
Incredible. What about other environmental things? You hear a lot about smoking. How does parental smoking fit into this picture?
That's another major one. Parental smoking, both during pregnancy and exposure to secondhand smoke after the baby is born, significantly increases the risk.
How significant?
Quite a bit. The toxins in cigarette smoke, like nicotine, are thought to affect the baby's brain development, particularly those same areas controlling breathing and arousal. It basically makes the baby more vulnerable if they get into a situation where they aren't getting enough air. They're less likely to wake up or react properly.
And this is true even for secondhand smoke, just being around it.
Yes. Even secondhand smoke in the baby's environment is a clear risk factor. Some research even points to risks from third-hand smoke, that residue that clings to clothes, furniture. It really highlights how important a completely smoke-free environment is, right from pregnancy onwards.
It's sobering, isn't it? How these different things, age, sleep position, smoke exposure, can kind of layer on top of each other, almost like a perfect storm for some infants. So knowing all this, what can parents and caregivers actively do? It feels like there should be concrete steps.
The good news is there are, right? Like the recommendations from the American Academy of Pediatrics. Precisely. And these recommendations are solid, evidence-based, and they really work. They're the foundation of SIDs prevention. The number one rule, the golden rule, is back to sleep.
Always on their back.
Always. Every single sleep. Naps, nighttime, doesn't matter. Until they are 1 year old.
What if they roll over themselves? Do you keep flipping them back?
Good question. Once they can consistently roll from back to front and front to back on their own, you don't need to reposition them if they end up on their stomach, but you should always start them on their back.
Okay, always start them on their back. Got it. What about where they sleep? The crib itself.
Right, the sleep environment. The key here is a firm sleep surface. That means a firm mattress that fits snugly in a safety-approved crib, bassinet, or play yard. No gaps.
Why firm? Why not something soft and cozy?
Because soft surfaces like soft mattresses, pillows, quilts, or even those padded bumper pads can be dangerous. A baby's face can sink into them, increasing the risk of suffocation or that rebreathing issue we talked about. So the rule is really bare is best inside the crib.
Bare is best. I like that. Easy to remember. So just a fitted sheet.
Exactly. Just a fitted sheet on a firm mattress. No blankets, no pillows, no stuffed animals, no bumpers.
What about keeping them warm?
Use a wearable blanket or a sleep sack. Those are safe alternatives to loose blankets.
Okay, firm surface, bare is best. Now, location. Where should the crib be? Room sharing comes up a lot.
Yes, and it's important to be clear here. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends room sharing, but not bed sharing.
Okay, explain the difference.
Room sharing means having the baby sleep in your room, but in their own separate sleep space, their crib, bassinet, or play yard. Close to your bed, but separate. This is recommended ideally for the first 6 months, maybe even the first year. It makes it easier to feed, comfort, and just keep an eye on the baby. And studies show it can reduce SID's risk by up to 50%.
50%. Wow. So why not bed sharing then, if close is good?
Because bed sharing, having the baby sleep in the adult bed, introduces significant risks. There's the risk of accidental suffocation from soft bedding, like pillows or duvets. There's also the risk of accidental overlay, where a parent might roll onto the baby without realizing it, or the baby could get trapped between the mattress and the wall or headboard. Plus, adult beds aren't designed for infant safety, and there's a higher risk of overheating. So close is good, but separate and safe is crucial.
That distinction is so important. Room sharing, yes. Bed sharing, no. It seems like following these guidelines really builds a strong foundation for safety. But, even doing everything right, parents worry. It's just natural. Are there other things people do for, like, extra peace of mind? Monitoring devices, maybe?
Yes, that desire for extra reassurance is completely understandable, and some parents do turn to movement monitors or those wearable devices that track breathing or heart rate. These sometimes have alarms if movement stops or if levels go outside a certain range.
Do they prevent SIDs?
That's the critical point. There's actually no evidence that these home monitors prevent SIDs. They might help with parental anxiety, giving some peace of mind, but they absolutely cannot replace following the safe sleep rules. They're not a substitute.
Okay, so they're more for reassurance than actual prevention. What else?
Well, simple, regular check-ins are common, just looking in on the baby, maybe gently touching them. And then there's the professional side. Regular pediatric consults. Don't underestimate the value of those routine checkups. They're a perfect time to ask your pediatrician any questions, discuss sleep habits, and get personalized advice and reassurance based on the latest research. It's a key part of monitoring and support.
That's really helpful context on monitoring. But you touched on something really difficult earlier, and I think it's important we address it, even though it's hard. What happens if, despite everything, the unthinkable does happen? What support is there for families who lose a baby to SIDs?
It's incredibly painful to talk about, but knowing support exists is vital. Losing a child this way is devastating and often comes with intense guilt and confusion because it's unexplained. There are resources. Professional counseling is often essential. Grief therapists, especially those who specialize in child loss, can provide really critical support. Support groups are also incredibly helpful for many families. Connecting with other parents who've been through the same specific tragedy can break down that feeling of isolation. There's a unique understanding there.
That shared experience must be powerful.
It really can be. And finally, many find comfort in memorializing their child. This looks different for everyone. Maybe a memory box, planting something, participating in awareness events, creating a special place. These acts help keep the child's memory present and can be a meaningful part of grieving and healing.
Thank you for covering that. It's so important to know that support exists, not just for those directly affected, but for all of us to be aware and compassionate. So, wrapping this up, it feels like the key message is that while SIDs is frightening because it's unexplained, we're not powerless. Understanding the risks, age, stomach sleeping, smoking, and really consistently applying the prevention strategies. Back to sleep, firm bare crib, room sharing, not bed sharing makes a massive difference. Knowledge and proactive care really do help turn that fear into informed action, right? Gives parents some control, some peace of mind. Even with remaining questions, what more can we learn to keep babies safe?
That's a great way to put it. And you're right, the learning doesn't stop. Staying informed and having access to reliable advice is key throughout infancy. For anyone wanting more in-depth information on SIDs, safe sleep practices, or really any topic related to children's health, we strongly recommend visiting omegapediatrics.com. They have a wealth of expert resources, articles, and information about their services. It's a fantastic place to get trusted advice. You can explore the site, read up, or even book an appointment if you have specific worries.
Absolutely. Check out omegapediatrics.com. And if you found this discussion helpful today, please do us a favor. Like this video, subscribe to our channel for more deep dives, and crucially, share this information. Share it with any parents, grandparents, babysitters, anyone caring for an infant. Spreading this knowledge can make a real difference. Thank you so much for joining us for this important conversation. Until next time, stay curious and stay well informed.
Goodbye for now.